what I want to offer is if any of you have a world that you'd like me to sort of take a look at from a performance standpoint, put that link in the chat. Uh, Basically, the way I'm gonna approach it, since I'm not able to look at your performance metrics, is I have to go off of what I see on my screen, right? So if I'm seeing some hitching, some UI delays and things like that, that's where, I'll have an eye for it and be able to point it out, and we could talk about what what is going on there, right? So if you have that, feel free to drop it in the chat. Let me open the chat over here. Storming Decker, I see your link there. So you're saying there's some hitches. Okay. So
Yeah, the insides show pretty like steady 60, but definitely like the chart. Like I don't know if the hitches are caused by my world or it's something more related to like streaming down from mobile or something like that. But anyway, if you have no other worlds to look at, here's a link, right? Essentially.
awesome. Super appreciate that. So let's just look at your world then. I see Mikey been optimizing your world mall mayhem. That's great. Yeah, the sustained 60, that's pretty good sign. But let's see if we can look at those hitches. The tricky part about, performance from my end without seeing metrics is that, I'm not able to look at I'm not allowed to look at your performance metrics, right? So the looking at the game and kind of feeling it out, seeing it that way, that's kind of like the main way we can approach it. We can make some guesses, but you'll have to go and take it back and see if any of those guesses are accurate. I could just use my knowledge that I have from
Yeah, to
making
that.
buggy worlds.
Yeah, to Natalia's point, mine is only single player though, so definitely like a multiplayer world would definitely expose more surface area for hitches probably. Although it's harder to test standalone, right? Just for you.
Yeah, I mean, alternatively, we can approach this by like if you pull up if you screen share your screen with your web browser playing your game, we can look at those dips, and we might even be able to run some traces too live, uh, if you want to try that. Let me share my screen. We can see the spots if you want to follow along on your screen. Like,
Yeah, yeah, go for that. Go for that. So that way you can get to more worlds too. Right.
well, it's looking like it's probably going to be yours and Natasha's if I don't see any other links. But yeah, so we'll spend a lot of time on focusing on these two. So yeah, so far right at the gate, yeah, I got particle effect kind of like on your spawn. Yeah, as you're probably noticing as I'm turning the camera, you can kind of see some hitching here and there, but there's for the most part that is oh great. So yeah, so here I'm noticing right away I can actually make some recommendations right off the bat. So I'm glad you're sharing this world. So from a like player like just for like the loading in, right? So something if you wanted to consider like a sort of faster load or a sort of a less smack to your load here of your world, you are putting the player like directly in front of a mirror and a particle effect, right? Something you can consider is making those have a bit of a delay, like if they don't already. I know by the time I was paying attention to it, it's already lit up. So if you don't already have that, that's something you could consider as a way to sort of like reduce the impact on load. Uh, if you do, awesome. That's great. Others who aren't aware of that, think about where you're putting your player. Often, if there's a lot of geometry and, expensive things to load, such as a mirror or particle effects that are sort of looping and you just, maybe have like multiple particle effects, that's something you can consider delaying or moving out of the way of the player, right? Now with like our mobile worlds, we can straight up do full on start screens, right? So potentially you can consider putting your player in a box somewhere off in the distance where they are basically just going to load their avatar in the box, right? As a way to reduce the impact on load. Let's keep looking around. Cool, cool. Let me grab some stuff. Okay, I like that. I'm seeing, let's see. So sometimes from a performance standpoint, I'll do some behaviors that are like kind of unnatural. Like that is not exactly how your players are going to do it, but it's important to still try to approach uh like testing testing the integrity of your world by doing some, silly actions that, a player that might just be like, messing around might do.
Please do.
So
I do that too. Yeah, I definitely
right,
break my world a ton. Yeah.
that's awesome, right? So that, something like this is like, you can mash custom UIs and see, how does that affect. You see, I like how you have like, here's the button and then it shows up there, right? So that's like two bindings that you can potentially overload, right? But here we're having pretty good success there. So like to see that. Let's see. I also want to like learn how to play the game too. So I kind of ignored the beginning portion. But here we got find the source of the noise, which is that's my directive here. So let's see. As I'm reading through these, let me see. Eh,
Yeah, some of those were added for the recent like up level. It was more clear when you look at the quest and it says like, yeah, go outside. Yeah, exactly. To
I see.
advance the tutorial. But yeah, that's a good point.
I do uh I'm liking the way that you're handling the binding so far because it's like, something like this, like clicking through rather quickly can have an impact on like hitting the limits of binding changes. So the design accounts for it, which I appreciate, right? It's just like a fade out and fade in, right? Often the performance impact that we see with the binding update limit is that things stop, right? Things stop to like stop work. They feel like you click something and it's no longer doing something, right? So something like this where it's like a fade out, fade in, that's a great way to sort of mitigate any what might feel like, oh, nothing's happening. It's like, okay, well, it's gonna take a second, but it's gonna fade out and fade in. So cool, cool there. Let's see. Yeah, I won't dwell too long on the lobby space because that's minor to the grand experience here, which we're seeing now. Those cameras, they worked well. Everything's moving great on my end. So I'm gonna follow it through. Sometimes with web and mobile, it can be a little confusing as to like whether it's like actually having a performance impact. For me, like, I'm moving around here and I'll see the jitter. Like I'm like really sensitive to the frame drops. So I'll see it, but like it's not, it's not like chugging along, right? It's like brief, right? Like just then I mean, you probably don't see it because you see the slideshow, but just then I had that moment where it's like it dips, right? And so it makes you wonder, like, is that just my like client that's kind of laggy or something? Like at that point, it's like you gotta weigh your options here, right? Of like, it wasn't like a super long dip, right? Some dips might be bearable and the player can kind of deal with them. That's nice. I need a weapon. Okay. I left my axe in the tree stump. Yeah, so like those camera movements and animations and stuff all look smooth on my end. Let's grab this axe over here.
Too bad we don't have any audio, but that makes sense. It would like
Oh, does it? Oh, no. Okay. Well, okay. Well, hang on. Am I doing this right?
I think you managed to somehow skip the trigger. Like that's at the
Interesting.
entrance there. Or I broke something. Maybe
Okay.
something broke. Okay, I'm sorry. It's supposed to
Okay, no
teleport out, then
worries.
he starts the fight.
Let me drop this and see it. Let's try something. Oh, so I just saw a pretty nasty hitch here. So, okay, let's see. So this is somewhere, okay. This is like right here, you could stand here when you're in editor and do an overdraw call here. I'm seeing a lot of overlapping geometry, so that would be an interesting spot to check uh how much overdraw is happening here. Like I only see, the tree, the plants, the mountain, and that little archway, but what's beyond that, right? Is that also being rendered? Right?
Yeah,
Think about
yeah,
this, the where the camera points in Horizon Worlds, even if something is far, right? If you didn't use LODs, then I'm rendering that at its like full raw potential, like it's full on potential, right? So it's important to like, stand in some of the areas where you think there might be some geometry behind things and switch it into that overdraw view so you can see how opaque that 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 render is. And I'll open my Horizon Worlds too so that I can demo that too real quick. So I don't have my axe anymore. The lag is coming from the resources being strained on my computer. So that's something to note as well too, right? Like sometimes so it's gonna be based on somebody else's computer. It's like, how much can you really optimize um like how far do you want to push your optimization, right? Like I think often of like games like League of Legends, Overwatch. Those are like games that run really well on older computers, but they're also like massively popular and giant team games. So be mindful of the work that it takes to actually optimize things. Sometimes you just got to take your smaller wins and just iterate, just keep on going. Yeah, I do get a little bit of a hit here, and I can
yeah.
I
I
can
got
imagine why.
Yeah, I got three zones around like the where you spawn is the middle, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not using any like world like subworld loading, which I definitely
Oh,
should be using. So because right now it's not statically in the scene. So like for example on your left there's a whole area there, and yeah, you
yep.
can see it if you look in the general direction, even though it's not visible because it's being like drawn, it's being overdrawn, right? So I don't
Nice.
want to toggle visibility because that would kick it out of like static lighting, but I should definitely use some sort of subworld loading. I just didn't have time to go into it.
Totally. Well, I'm glad you have that as a like, that that's available, right? Because that's basically on your to-do list, right? That's basically what is the most obvious fix to like super enhance the performance and make sure that it's like really optimize as much as possible is to like introduce sub levels, especially when you've got sections. First of all, it's a single player game, right? So then you don't have that worry about other players being in one area and whether the sub level needs to load for one player or the other, right? You don't have that worry. It's the single player, so it's a raw, straight up. When they're in this trigger, all these other areas, all these other sub levels are off, are unloaded, and when they enter the trigger, then you activate the one and disable all the others, right? And that's going to be a huge boost in performance. So yeah, great. I'm gonna keep walking around this. I'm gonna check the comments here in just a second of the chat, but I do want to take another look on this backside. Actually, let's grab here, right? Cool. I like these kinds of grabs like this where it doesn't literally put something in your hands. That is another way to like improve a performance, right? So you've already got that concept. It does show something is on me. Like I do have the holster button. Oh, it's the axe. Cool. So it attaches to me. That's great. But the actual, some things you can, especially like if it's a resource like this, it's like you're grabbing it constantly. The player with doing this is a great example of like, you did the custom UI, and instead of having all that geometry and all that positional change on the objects, the player still feels the feeling of like collecting the thing. So, it doesn't all have to be as, you don't always have to see the player picking up the literal object and for them to still feel the sense of like collection and yeah, and the role play of collecting stuff. So, ooh, this is interesting. That's an interesting thing. So we've got a billboarded fog-like thing, or at least it feels billboarded.
Yeah, yeah, it's smokes or like popcorn effects that kicks in. Yeah, if you don't have the torch, and so it makes navigation even harder. It goes away if you craft a torch. But the yeah, but you can still I'm still muddle your way through. Good job.
Oh, I missed it. There you go. Okay, question for you. Do you know if there's going to be anything? Well, here we'll talk about this section here, and then I'll take a look at another world here, or we might come back to this one here at the end of the call. But let's look at what you got going on here is a rotating mesh, right? Um,
Well, it's scrolling and teleporting back. So there's actually three squares of water, and they slide by 20 units and then snap back. It's just I have
Excellent.
it looping perfectly so you don't see.
Got it. Got it. So that is, yeah, that's going to be any time you're doing any of these like motions that are looping, these are areas where you want to consider, besides the sub level thing, like if you have the sub level, excuse me, if you are not, the words are jumbled in my mind, but I know what I want to tell you. It's just not coming out as words. Here we go. So when you use the sub level, that does mitigate these types of things as well, like loops, update loops that are being called across entities. You're mitigating those when you unload those sublevels as well. So that's a solid way to handle that aspect of the world as well. The other aspect to note is if you have to have something that is, it's not going to unload in a sublevel, and it's something like this, which is a like basically update loops on multiple entities. Something you would probably want to consider is sort of trigger outside of a range that, maybe you sort of hide this around a corner like you do. You have the cave, you have the fog, right? You might already be doing this, but I just want to highlight this for others. Is when they're when they are not when your player is not near that thing, turn off that update loop, right? Because that update loop is running all the time, right? It doesn't matter how close your player is to it. And that update loop is one more, a few more milliseconds that are eating into your 13 millisecond budget if you're, hitting 72. I believe, what is it, 16 for 60 frames per second? But you got to think about your budget of things in milliseconds, and how every time you do these sort of heavier operations that are always constantly running, you're eating into that budget. And so be thinking about like what ways can you free up some of those things by turning off, disconnecting the update loop when they're not near it. Uh, think about other things that are part of the budget too, right? Like think about at this point of the, when they're at this point in the world, I want them to, have more, there needs to be more focus on textures or more focus on models, right? And so like that should be a weight that is shifting. Like you need to be thinking about the pie that makes up the entire like 16 millisecond budget, or 13 if you're doing VR, and deciding which slice of the pie has more weight at any given time. So this has been really fun to like explore it. I'm getting very much Zelda vibes.
Yeah, it's too
Uh,
bad that still in the tutorial. Otherwise, you'd be fighting a giant spider right now.
I hear you. Okay. Well, this will be something I come back to because I do want to see the giant spider. I'll figure out what happened with the rat. I'll message you if I find any. I'll just replay it and see if I can get it to go. But anyways, that'd be spoilers, right? So y'all come check this world out. The links in the chat. Come fight a giant spider if you haven't already. So let's leave it at that. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if there was there anything that you particularly wanted to hear about, or any questions you had around any sort of gut feelings you were having around optimization that you wanted to like validate.
No, I think generally speaking, like unupdate loops definitely trigger them more dynamically. I try a little bit, but I'll do more for sure. And yeah, the sub-level loading for Overdraw because that's the problem with a static world like this. Essentially, it's cool to have a hub, but all the areas are always rendered, and that's kind of like that gets to pretty tremendous overdraw. It makes it hard to scale further, right? So I definitely would have to have the hub load and unload things. There's already trigger zones. When you walk, you see it shows a little piece of text that shows the zone you're entering. So I
Yes.
already have like zone transition triggers, so I will
Excellent.
probably just tie them to loading.
Excellent. Excellent. And tie those also to these particle effect gizmos, because just like text gizmos, these are just always rendered regardless of where you're looking. So tie those into your loading and unloading as well when possible. Like turn off as many particle effects as possible when the player's not near them, especially in a single player game. A little bit trickier in a multiplayer game, but just to give, if anybody is running into things like that, you want to think about how to do these sort of on and off switches with multiple players. Think about worlds like Citadel. If you played Survivor when it was out, the in those kinds of games, for Survivor, we move players together, right? In Citadel, you often see the players moving together, right? And that's for the intention of being able to make sure that everybody's in the same spot when you're turning off all the lights and metals elsewhere, or particles elsewhere. So think about how you can build that into your game design to where there are moments where you're alerting your players, hey, you're about to all move together to this similar location, right? Once they're in that space, you know, uh the less you can have around them, meaning, less things to grab, less things to render, the better it is from a like when you're toggling all the other stuff on and off, because that switching of on and off also has an impact as well. So it's just important to remember those things. But as you probably noticed with like mobile and the web, the worlds are rendering much better from a frame rate perspective. So, we already like it's important to like sort of reacquaint yourself with the budgets that we do have available, right? There's new numbers, new targets, new things, and so the main thing is to be watching your performance metrics to look for the hitches, to look for the actual dips. So in your playtest, remember to press P, remember to press your little gear icon on your mobile device, watch that number. Once it dips below 60, if it dips for a long time, then you've got something to look at there to take a deep look at. So awesome. Great world. Let's move along here. Let me
Thank you,
take a
Matt.
look. Yes, no problem. Got that. See Mike G. I see Natasha. Okay, great. So we'll take it from this one freezes when there's more than one player. So I've changed it to on player. Oh, to one player. Gotcha. This is Sushi Catch. Cool. So we'll take a look at Sushi Catch and then we'll take a look at Mall Mayhem. Sub-level features does not work for multiplayer games where players can be on all areas at the same time. Yeah, that's so I hope I cleared up some stuff there, Pace, as far as like, give them that message, teleport them into a common space, and then you can do all that magic. Just thinking how can you build this stuff with multiplayer. Got it. Yeah, sometimes like pace, sometimes it is not like it's just not part of your game design, and that's just like the burden you have to bear, right? And so you got to be thinking about, your optimizations mainly come from unloading audio or using smaller texture files or using LODs, right? And so yes, you have your whole space that, five different areas, five different people can explore at any given moment. You take your wins in a different way, right? Make sure your collisions reduce as much as possible, right? Make sure you're using simple colliders as opposed to your mesh colliders. And that's going to be the small wins you gain that give you that give you that budget towards things that you actually care about, like making sure that, maybe you have something that's constantly animated in the player's face. It can be anything. It could be whatever you find. Maybe you can fit more models in a player's given space or spawn more dynamic objects. Whatever you find to be the thing that adds that next bit of value to your world, that's what, focusing on these performance things and taking your small wins, that's what it grants you. So let's see. Let's keep on going here. Loving the love for the world. Space of the purple fire. Great. Hustle. Great. See you. All right, so let's hop over to Sushi Catch. Oh, you know what? Let me like your worlds too. Make sure I'm showing some love there. We'll take a look at it now. So let's see here.
Yeah, I thought it was like fun work, but it's just like I had help like with scripting and it's like spawning assets and it's have physics. I'm like, I just don't know like what can be done exactly to make it like playable. Wasn't one
So
person.
So this one I know, this one's multiplayer, right? So if anybody else
Yes,
wants to join me,
I've changed it purposely, but like it's really bad freeze.
I'm
I
sorry,
can
it's really bad. What?
it's a really bad freeze. Like it's literally like
Freeze.
preventing second player from. But like yeah, let's.
Let's
If
see it
nobody
then.
joins, I'll join.
Yes, I want to push it to its max. So if you have a device
I
on
put
hand,
4 right now. I've put 4
okay.
players.
That's a good place to start too, right? Like often just dropping the player count, that is one of the main sources of like it, making sure your millisecond budget is like pretty open. But then you got to think about the other aspects too, make sure you don't like cap out there. So as you know, some of you came from the VR building world of things, right? So there, you would see when you would raise and lower your player count, you could see the capacity allowance would change, right? So that it's in a similar sense. It's just that you have to be it's not as easy as just looking at the bars anymore. Now it's a matter of like going in and running your performance metrics view so you can actually watch the dips or run your Perfetto traces to really analyze each individual frame and checking how many milliseconds things are taking. Always remember that there are aspects about Horizon systems that are going to eat quite a bit of the budget right from the jump. There's nothing you can do about that. You just have to figure out what the actual true budget is for your, you know, uh, script usage, texture usage, model usage, and all that. So let's hop on in here. So let's walk over here. All you can eat sushi. Wait, are we in the right place? Yes. There we go. Did it bring you? Oh, okay, okay. So it's like that. Okay, we'll get you in the next one. Still, you're still taking up space in the world, so that's good. Okay,
Oh,
I'm seeing. So
wait, it's working. Why is it working?
yeah, it's great. As it's a feature, not a bug, right? Let's see. Is wasabi good? I don't know. I'm like wasabi's not like I'm not. I'm like
Yeah, wasabi is
mid.
not good.
Okay, okay. See, that's gonna be this. It's not a design a call, but that's an interesting one, right? Like some people love wasabi. I've seen people eat like mounds of wasabi. So it's like kind of like emergent gameplay. They're like not gonna want to get the points, right? But
Yeah, I had another version with candies, and Oreo was negative points, and everyone told me why you had Oreos.
that's hilarious. Yeah. So player feedback, right? Always a great fun thing. Oh, there it goes. -3 points. I learned my lesson. Too spicy for my avatar, and me in real life too. But I'm learning. I'm taking it bite by bite. So yeah, so I'm seeing particle effects on each of these sushis. I'm seeing physics. As far as like the gameplay area goes, it's a small space, so that's good. That from a rendering side of things, that's you're using your budget well. You're choosing less models, less detail for the ability to do the physics in the way you're doing it right in the mesh collider and the particle effects on each thing. And I say good, I mean in the sense of like it's doing what you have it designed to do at the moment, right? But something you can consider is, what happens like just even on paper, right? Like what happens if you shift some stuff around and think about like, okay, if you reduce the amount or you make sure that there is no mesh colliders, you're using simple collisions. Maybe you're not even doing like a physics drop, you're just doing a lerp to get the object down. Maybe you're not even using collision at all. You're just using trigger enters, right? And so like you're just like sort of reducing the amount of like I guess like mesh based collider based things in favor of things that happen on more simple events, right? Like a trigger. Think about the fact that the 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 food kind of falls in a determined space, right? So why wouldn't a trigger just already be there that just activates? It can predict where it's going to fall, right? That is if there is a charm to seeing the sushi wiggle. So I'm not like prescribing that it has to be this way. I'm just suggest I'm trying to open your mind to different ideas around how you might choose a different design for like future games, and sort of leaning on intentional performance based game design decisions. So I know the turning something on the physics and having it drop and all that stuff, that feels so great in Horizon World. So I could see where it comes from, like the desire to do it, and like I said, the charm of it. So don't let those stray you from like saying like, oh, I got to do it the most optimized way. It's like do it based on whether it makes sense as a value proposition to your players, right? Or as it's something that you are willing to compromise with. You're saying, well, I don't really care if the sushi wiggles that much, right? Or something to note too is like some of this stuff from a skills standpoint, right? Is like, well, how do I even begin to code that, right? Well, what's that going to take for me to get it from this point to that point? However, don't good things take time, right? If you do spend your time compromising and learning those skills to make those more performant things, what does that open you up to, right? Like what's a what's some more models in that space, right? Or a little character that's in there with you, like a referee or something. What does it open up for you too when you do spend the time and make those optimization changes? Do those things like a little character or even like power up systems that have like even more juicy particle effects. Uh, when you add those, how much value would your players get at that point, right?
Well, by the way, I do have powered ups. Maybe that would make it freeze more because it's gonna drop more stuff.
Well, as far as we were seeing, it was let's all go in there and see if we can freeze it up because like we were playing pretty all
Yeah,
right.
that's very strange. Unless it was just like a meta bug.
Just one of those
Because it was
server
really bad.
days.
Like last time I tried, it was okay. It's frozen me right now. I can,
Whoa! Somebody's got the
but
sushi hacks.
I bought a lot of power ups. So I wonder if you're playing on a phone because now I switch on my phone, and I don't know if you guys playing on desktop.
Yeah, I'm definitely on desktop right now. So you're on your phone and you saw what happened.
Yeah, I'm frozen. Like everything frozen. I can try to send a screenshot, but like it's
Interesting.
completely frozen for me. But
So
it's on a phone.
that would be something that'd be interesting to like run a trace on, right? Run the trace through your phone. When you're in your world, or even now, like you said.
It doesn't let me press that button anymore. Like it's
Yeah, so
completely.
in the on the next round, or you can leave and come back. You can see if it'll let you press that.
Oh, so you don't see? Do you see what are the?
We see you
Oh,
as a coin right
I
now.
see.
Ooh, that was not me. Oh, you're so good at getting the goal. It's like you're magnetized to it. Uh, I get a little bit of hitching here and there, but it's quick, and the gameplay is rather quick. So yeah, so that's something that is like, I could think that that the physics side of things might be affecting it. Um, so that's something you'll want to consider, right? It's like, what are some alternative ways of doing the actual placement of the sushi, right? Cool. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. Let's take a look at Mall Mayhem.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. That was a lot of fun. So thanks to Stormy Decker, Natasha. Thanks for sharing your world so far. Also, thank you, Mike. So you've definitely made this a really performance focused call where I was kind of worried it wasn't going to be. So this is super great. All right, so back to this. So what do we have? We have great. So this is yeah. So similar notes about like player loading space here, but as far as like moving around the space. Let's see, we're feeling good. It's looking good. We got a lot of information around. Um, yeah, something that's fun about a space like that. I love the like immersion of it. Right, I'm definitely in a mall. If you if we're thinking about like the most hardcore of optimizations potentially, is like if you took like a screenshot of this without the door and you made that like a facade right here, you're gonna lose a lot of the charm, a lot of the like immersion. but that is a huge, that would be a pretty big save, right? As far as like overdraw goes. At the end of the day, the player is gonna have to run in here anyway, so take that one with a grain of salt. Take any of these points with a grain of salt, but just sharing what I've seen so far in game optimization on Horizon World. So what do we got? All right, thank you, Tractor. I'm like, wait, is that cool? Cool. So let's see. All right, I didn't read how to play, but I'm gonna figure it out. Let's see here. Shopping list. Oh, I like the fact that you're doing these like instructions spatially too. I find that people do go and read them more when they're less of instructions on a wall. So this is cool. Shopping list on the bottom left of your screen. So I need a lamp, trumpet, and yeah, so I'm wondering, are these themed or are we just gonna find random stuff in random stores? Let's go looking for a lamp. Slow down. Jump. Whoa. Why can't I think about where anything can be bought? I'm like, here, salon has to have. There we go. Here we go. Now we're cooking. Good job. Anything in here? No, I need a donut. So, so there are. Sent you to the bathroom. It's crazy. That's never happened to me in my life. Let's see. Donut's got to be in here, right? Says Drools found the donut. I probably should find where Drools is. So, Mike, is the are most of these assets like separate imported assets?
Yes, all the assets are separately. I did each of the stores separate to optimize it. I did find out that when you optimize that way and you have your textures coming in individually, it kind of duplicates textures. So one cool optimization tip that I found out is to bring all the meshes in first and then bring the textures in second and then do it all individual like that so that they're always pointing to the same texture. Otherwise, they'll all be duplicating textures, I've noticed.
Agreed, agreed. And generally, I'm noticing a trend about the models that you have in here. They're basically all low poly models, right? With that low poly style. So there's like, I haven't actually noticed if any of these have a texture that really stands out as a like as needing to be its own like image file. Maybe something like this, that leaf, even that still though. Let me see if I can find something. No, because even something like that. But basically what I'm noticing is that these all have the potential to be vertex painted, which from that standpoint, right, like then you don't even really have to worry about a texture at all, right? They're just, they're painted with data saying, color and amount of influence that the color has on any particular vertex, right? And so then you're not having to have all these like, multiple image files coming in. As far as, I mean, are you finding that this world is hitting like, whoa, that was a hitch. Are you finding that it's hitting like the memory limit?
It was before I optimized it. So each store that you're looking at, I
Uh-huh.
optimized in a way that like when you look left, that's all one object. When you look right, that's all one object. So I tried to look at the player from like a 360 axis, and every angle I grouped all the meshes so that it all runs as one mesh, but from different angles you get. So this was before LODs when I created this world. I probably would have used LODs. And to answer your question about the textures, I'm using maybe like 4 or 5 textures max, and majority of them are pulling from one, and that's where you're getting most of the vertex kind of looking low poly.
Gotcha, gotcha. Cool. So it's just to state that again. So the image that they're like, how many images total they're pulling from?
I would say maybe about 5, 6 images. I did this thing called an atlas, where if you
Mhm.
notice there's some like pictures. So I grouped all my pictures in a 4K texture and I atlased them. and I'm just pretty much sharing that around the whole world. So it was at first it was duplicated 50 times, and I was able to take those 50 textures and turn it down to 4. With the help of the mentor program, you guys are amazing. So thank you for all of those tips. But it definitely helped me get this world to have better frame rates, and I was able to add more players to it. I can get up to I think 14 players now.
Awesome, awesome. That's great. The sorry, I'm just flexing my win here, but the
Right.
the thing that comes to mind is I am seeing, as I'm moving the camera, it does feel a little hitchy. I would want to see though, if you pull up your performance metrics, are you seeing that as well? Is it dipping below 60, or is that just like, am I just being like, are my eyes too sensitive and I'm saying like 60 frames is like pretty
Well,
intense?
I think I'm getting over 60 now. But
Excellent.
before I did a lot of these performance tips, I definitely was getting under that, and I had to lower my player count for sure.
Okay, okay. So that's this probably that you're like, jump in that space between like 59, 60 or something like that. Yeah. Uh, that's that's cool. Given that there's so many assets and things like that, like the joining definitely does help. I do want to point out too, though, that there is like a too much joining side of things too, but you're gonna have to see that through like Perfetto, uh, where or in your performance metrics, the setting that says wait for GPU, that is the CPU waiting for the GPU to process all the things that it's trying to render, right? So in a world like this where there are many multiple objects, or the amount of objects are like they're all joined together, but they're all like possibly rendered at the same time, even if they're behind you, right? Due to the joining. Like say for instance, let me stand here, right? So if like you said, you joined like one side of the place and the other, let's assume that it's like the front side, or the left side and the right side, right? So the right side here might be all joined together, right? So like even that
Hmm.
arcade that's to my right, though it's not in my screen at all, because you joined it, it's rendering, right? And any of those multiple objects that are in there, they're going to take time to render. They're all going to be together. It'll be all one big package rendered, right? But it is still time taken, right? So that's to say, like, as you join things, be cautious that you don't join too many things, or else then they become part of this package deal that you have to render per frame, despite it not being in your view at all, right? So what would be some alternatives, right? Maybe you cut it into like 4 sections, and maybe that helps too. Like you said, you're not running into frame rate issues, so that's fine. But if you are close, or you're bumping up on it, that's a space that you could try to. It's like, okay, well, I did the massive join of both sides, right? What happens then if I cut those 2 sides into 2 more sides, right? And now I can benefit from the culling, but you got to do some math there, right? And actually literally apply it to the numbers you're seeing, right? So it's very trial and error. Very much you import it into one world, import into another, and compare your numbers on like a Google spreadsheet, um, as a way to find those like alternatives. So awesome, cool. Let's see. Other thing I wanted to talk about. So yeah, so the vertex color stuff, that would help from like a memory standpoint, since basically all of these are very much low poly vertex color looking things. Any of the ones that would need images, you would just create the textures for those and have those imported, and then you're not working with a 4K texture, right? You're bringing in something smaller, which is less to download for the player, and definitely taking less memory than a 4K texture, right? As far as particle effects go, that is the appeal, right, of these gift boxes. I see you're using a text gizmo, so those are being rendered as well. But something like that would be an interesting metric to like test with. Is like what happens when you don't spawn any gift boxes? How does the performance run at that point, right? And then that's your baseline, right? And so then when you add the gift boxes, it's kind of like zeroing out the weight, right, on a scale, just seeing what those baseline numbers are, eh, turning on and off, like toggling on and off certain features that spawn things in or play audio or particle effects. That's a way you can start to see like what the impact of those individual things are. you only do this like transparent thing here, so that's cool. Anytime you're doing those transparent things, that's a place you want to.
I was wondering, you were talking about, have you discussed like recording a perf trace and viewing the timeline of that trace in the desktop editor to see like per frame what meshes and images are being drawn to like get a good idea about what you're over?
Yeah, I
You've
mentioned it.
combined too many meshes, or you've got too many textures.
Right. I mentioned it briefly. I think Shards, it'd be awesome if you could go grab that link to, if you know of that link to Pigeon sessions
Right. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, it might be on the GitHub too, so it might just be like, I mean, it should be on the, the GitHub definitely, but that is those previous performance sessions that Pigeon hosted. Those are great examples of like, getting into the actual trace and seeing exactly what you can look for, like Shard just mentioning, like the exact models and things. Hopefully that continues to get better with the tooling, the performance tooling that we're getting from Meta. So yeah, like we'll just keep playing with what we've got. I didn't play this round at all. I was like riding high on my win from last time, so y'all got lucky, whoever's in here. If I was focused, it would have been a wrap. So my main points for you is the model textures and playing around with different ways to like subdivide the world so that you can leverage the view culling.
I think I found the link in the forums.
Ooh, love that. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I know there was a few. So keep digging around on the forums looking for keyword performance and see if you can find any of the other workshops that have gone on. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I'm kind of going over time now because I had too much fun. But yeah, thanks for coming. There are many more feedback festivals to go to, much more to learn about improving your world. So please, tune into those, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.